G'day and welcome to Kids Culture Community Snake Yarns. This is the Snake Podcast. Really excited to be here. This is episode 2, believe it or not, of 2026. We're here today to talk about how to get your stories heard in 2026, and we've got a very special guest with us today, Dakota Lally from the Snake team. How you going, Dakota?
I'm very well, Michael. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here to have a yarn today.
Yeah, it's just amazing to have you. And I think before we kick off, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which I'm dialing in from today. I'm dialing in from beautiful Bunurong country, and I'd like to pay my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that might be joining, listening in, watching the podcast today. Dakota, I guess before we get stuck into it, and we've got some pretty curly questions lined up for you today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit of an intro, and a little bit as well about some of the things you do at Snake?
Of course. So my name is Dakota Lally, and I am an Eastern Arrernte and Gurindji woman based in Mparntwe, Alice Springs. This is my hometown. I have worked at Snake for the last, I think, 4 years. It's coming up to 4 years, maybe a little bit longer. And for that duration, I've worked in the strategic engagement and communications team, which is the deadliest team in my opinion. And I work as the communications coordinator. So I've been taking care of Snake's social media for the last two years. So everything that you see posted across socials, is all from me. So I usually come up with the content, I edit it, write the captions, and whatever you see on our socials is the final product of that process. So I am the face behind the kind of nitty-gritty systems with social media for Snake.
You did an incredible prezzo at Snake 25 last year in Brizzy. It was an amazing presentation. You packed out the room. You sold out the room. So many people were there to listen to your prezzo. And I guess the essence of the prezzo was just kind of tips and tricks for people about how to get the best out of their social media. And I guess to kick things off today, I don't know about you, but I always feel so lucky to be at Snake and to have that opportunity to amplify, 65,000 plus years of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. Is that how you feel about it? Do you think that's at the crux of what we do with our socials?
Absolutely. And I think one thing as Aboriginal people, we have to remember that we are the original storytellers of this country, and our stories are always valued in every single room that we walk into, especially in a space like Snake 25. Looking back on that presentation that I did along with Snake's media manager, Charlie, where we really touched on how important a story is and what a story can do to get attention, to get people aware of something that might be happening, in the ACO space, in your work that you're doing with children and families, because there is a bit of a gap on social media where we don't really hear the good stuff about Aboriginal people. And we're always spoken about in a deficit. And I think that wherever we can and wherever people want to listen, we really want to push that narrative that, hey, we actually do some really good work and it's here if you mob want to see it and if you mob want to listen. It's a situation where the presentation that we did in Brizzy, we were just teaching people and telling people, hey, we want to hear your stories. This is how you do it. This is how you can be strategic with it. And this is how you can actually make change in your community, in your sector. So it's really just looping back in the idea of having a yarn and telling a story is actually one of the most powerful things that you can do. And I mean, who doesn't love a yarn? So it's one of those things that really ties in, with the social media space, telling stories.
That's exactly right, Dakota, and that is it, right? Like, when you get down to the nitty gritty and the crux of it, it's really about sharing those amazing stories from elders, communities, and families, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Usually these stories are kept in closed rooms because sometimes we don't see the value in a story until we have somebody else come along who might not have the same lived experience or not have an idea about what it's like living as someone who is Aboriginal or who has had, particular experiences, living in Australia. Um, it's really one of those things where the light bulb goes off to be like, oh, hang on, we can actually share this story and amplify it to a more wider audience, and
Mm,
it could be a lot more influential. Doesn't even like, the story doesn't even have to be a big great story about how someone did this and did that. It can literally just be a yarn. So for example,
mm,
looking back to Snake 25 again, we had a great presentation from two aunties who started the first ACO. And, back then it's just, they might not have thought that it would have been this big, grandiose thing. But then, nearly 40, 50 years later, we look back on that and it's just the power of a yarn talking about how
mm.
different things were back then, talking about how, that they established their service in a very different time compared to where we are today. And it's those stories that kind of drive what we do now, and especially people who work in the sector. It's that passion, it's that shared vision, I guess, for a better future for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families. That, yeah, it really is embedded in Aboriginal people, these stories. And we might not notice the impact of a story in the moment, but once you hear a story and then you look at it from a different lens, I guess, that's when you're like, hang on, this deserves to be heard on a bigger platform. This could be very influential. Let's put a magnifying glass on this and let's put it out there. So, I mean, yeah, you always, and when we refer back to elders as well, their stories are already as valuable, they're valuable as they are. There's nothing that can compare to hearing a yarn or a story from your elders. From me, myself, for example, there's nothing better than sitting down with, my grandparents and hearing about things that they went through up and coming through, over the years. So, yeah, definitely social media is just a massive tool to really amplify those stories. I mean, they're unheard until they're heard, and it really is just as simple as that.
Ah, yeah, yeah, so well said, and that is so spot on, and probably people are getting pretty pumped right now, Dakota. You probably got people fired up and they're ready to
Yeah.
go and start recording.
Yeah.
But yes, which is awesome. But I know there's something that you in particular you're so good at with the way you take care of socials. It's about, which I'm not always the best at being organised. It's about having a plan. I just how important is that in terms of 2026, that first step and getting your kind of ducks in a row with your socials. If you're an org, if you're an ACO, and you're watching this, how important is it to have a bit of a plan ready to go? And I guess, do you have any advice about how you go about it?
With the planning, I that is one of the most important skills to have when you want to work with social media, because time doesn't stop for anyone, and time is a very big factor in the social media landscape, in the social media world. So me myself, I'm a type B person. I'm kind of scrambling around trying to get things organized, get things done, but you really got to lock into that type A personality where you're like, okay,
Mm,
let's get this stuff done and let's write it out and let's actually work towards something and have it locked in. What I would say is that ideally you'd sit down at the start of the year. So, for example, 2026, I sat down in January and I looked at the 2026 calendar month by month and just penciled in all of the really important days or weeks that are up and coming for the year. ADOC week, reconciliation week, all those sorts of days that relate to the sector that we are in. And then what I do at the start of the month, knowing what we know, looking at the year calendar with what might be upcoming with content, is to sit down and actually think about some of the content that we can do around certain days. So, for example, we have International Women's Day up and coming in March. So that's when you kind of get the creativity up and going in your head, thinking, cool. For example, if you're in a service, if you're in an ECEC ACO service, you could sit down and be like, okay, we have some really influential, strong women in our service. Let's just sit down with them and have a yarn. You could link it back into, working at the service. So, really, you got to think about things that relate back to the work that you do, and especially um, as it would make sense. It wouldn't really make sense for us to comment on a day that doesn't really have anything to do with us. So you got to make sure
Yeah.
that it's relevant as well. So that's what I would say with the monthly planning. See the days that are kind of up and coming in the month and start thinking
Mm.
about content that you can do, because the longest part, or one of the most time consuming parts of social media is content creation, but we can touch on that a bit later on.
Mm.
Um, and then once you do the monthly, you can look more towards the weekly, because social media is an ever changing landscape. I know for me myself, I meet with Charlie every week and we go through what's up and coming in the week, and we just pencil in what we can post in the up and coming week. We try to post 5 to 6 times a week across our social media platforms. And sometimes it gets derailed because there might be some things up and coming in the media that we might be commenting on, or there might be something that has come up unexpectedly that needs a spotlight on it through our social media platform. So, what I would say around the planning, to really summarize everything that I've just said, is you need to be doing it yearly, once at the start of the year, monthly, once at the start of the month, and then you need to be doing it consistently week to week when it comes to planning. Yeah, social media doesn't work unless you have a plan.
I think I personally feel that the space is constantly changing. As you've said, that social media space, it's constantly changing up. How would you describe the differences between your Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn? I think they're probably the big three, and then there's TikTok as well, which has been a big disruptor, I guess, over recent years. But I guess with the three that we've mentioned off the top there, how do you see them, and do you approach each of those platforms a bit differently?
Absolutely. So I think a great misconception about social media for people who aren't really aware of how it works is that the same content is going to work across every single social media platform, and that's just far from the truth. In
Mm.
an ideal world, it'd make our jobs as social media content creators a lot more easier. But yeah, that's just not the truth. So the way that I see it is that Facebook is, what I would say, is more community driven. There's a lot of users on Facebook, and when I talk about Snake, I like to think of them as characters, or Snake's social media accounts, so Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. This is something that I've kind of taken on recently because it's a lot easier for me, because I've got quite a creative mind. When it comes to words and data, it's like, oh, it's a bit too much for me. But when it comes to the creative side of thinking, I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. So the way that I see it is that Facebook, I look at it as that one auntie who has all of the stories, and she tells all of the stories, and she doesn't really care if it's going to hurt your feelings or not. But some of those stories that she shares, they're going to land with some people, and a lot of people
Mm.
are probably going to agree with her, but they might upset others. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I see Snake's Facebook, because the thing
Love
is,
that.
we we have a very distinct audience on Facebook, and that's our community. So we mostly speak to our ACOs on Facebook, our families, and other community members who are interested, in Aboriginal organisations and the work that we kind of do in the sector. So yeah, in my head, I think, okay, what would an auntie say, to these mob? Now, when I think about Instagram, it's more of that cool cousin that has the camera out all the time, taking photos with everyone, telling everyone to pose up, let's take a photo, let's look good, because Instagram is a visual platform. What's going to work on Instagram isn't going to work on Facebook, because Facebook is one of those platforms where you can share photos and videos, obviously, but you also have a lot of written stuff that can go on there too. So for Instagram is purely to do with that visual side of storytelling. And
Mm.
it's the most engaged, in my opinion, it's actually the most engaging social media platform, because, you just look at a photo and you see what you see is what you get. That's literally it. It's just a visual platform. Now, with LinkedIn, it's another completely different way to look at these, characters. Is LinkedIn is that same thing, might be that brother or sister that's just so, career oriented, doesn't want to hear no, knows stories about no one and just wants to talk about their business, what they're doing, and it's strictly business. What's happening in the sector, what's happening at their work, what are some things that excites them when it comes to work. So when you look at LinkedIn, it's really got to be that lens of professional, only want to talk about work, and that's pretty much it. But the same thing is sometimes you look at it, I might confuse some people here, but sometimes, the LinkedIn side of the LinkedIn character isn't that serious, and might want to speak with the auntie on Facebook, and they do cross contaminate sometimes.
Mm.
For example, with LinkedIn, we do share some of the good story videos that we post on, Facebook and Instagram onto LinkedIn, because realistically, the whole basis of having social media accounts is to share good stories, and that's the common denominator with all three social media platforms that we use, is that we're here to speak about the sector and really amplify those really, really good stories that come from the sector, because we are the national voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in the sector. So it makes total sense that we would, be utilising social media in a way that it really amplifies those stories. So I hope I haven't confused you for talking about all the characters and everything else, but that's just how I see it
Oh.
in my mind, and it really just simplifies things a lot more than other ways might.
I just want to say, Dakota, that is absolute gold. I've never heard that. I've been taking notes. So we've got Facebook's the kind of loose uncle and auntie at Christmas. You know, the one that always just firing off the stories, right? Like, they've got plenty of stories. Some of them are great. Some of them, not, you try to walk away. Yep, so that's Facebook. Insta's the cool cousin. And LinkedIn's that kind of entrepreneur vibe to it. So
Yeah. That's exactly right.
that's fantastic. Love it. And we did touch on TikTok just there. I think something TikTok's done, just they've changed the game, or they changed the game some years ago, just in terms of vertical videos. I mean, prior to TikTok kind of disrupting things, the done thing, there was always a rule when I was like going to uni and stuff, going to school, was always like, you have to shoot horizontal. Has to be horizontal. Never shoot vertical on your phone. TikTok completely flipped that. So I guess, and that's kind of spread to Insta. Could you talk to us a bit about the short form vertical videos and just how strong they are in terms of engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is no better way than to land a story with someone than to have it through a video. Like, a lot of people enjoy sitting down watching videos, and on TikTok, it really did change the game, and it also
Mm.
changed the way that people consume content as well.
Mm.
Um, you might hear a lot of people in the social media sphere talk about that really important time within we call them reels on social media. So when I refer to reels, I'm talking about videos. So the really important part of a reel is within the first 3 to 5 seconds, because that's how long it'll take a user to decide whether or not they're going to continue watching the rest of your video. And I mean, anyone who knows who's on TikTok or Instagram, I mean, we're all guilty of it. We sit there and we scroll, and then whatever appeals to us, it's usually because the first 3 to 5 seconds has really hooked us in, and we want to know more about whatever this person is talking about. So TikTok, it is one of those social media platforms that is purely reels, and it's just quick, easy messaging that relates to people, and really ciphers through people to get to your target and intended audience, to be able to watch your content. And the thing with TikTok and Instagram is that a lot of content that's made for TikTok can actually come over into Instagram as well, because Instagram has actually started to adapt, because TikTok just goes gangbusters. Like everyone, a lot of people are on it. So it makes total sense that whatever is trending or whatever goes viral on TikTok always makes its way over to Instagram, because you're also reaching another audience on Instagram. A lot of people who are on Instagram might not necessarily have a TikTok account. So there's always that back and forth between TikTok and Instagram. They're kind of linked in a way, but the one thing that remains constant is that it's always at 3 to 5 seconds at the beginning that is going to influence whether or not someone is going to watch the whole reel. And another key thing that a lot of people need to remember is that it needs to be shot vertical, and it needs to be ideal time 30 to 45 seconds, because that is how long someone is probably, if they're relaxing and watching your content, that's how they don't want to be sitting there for ages listening to something that might not be going anywhere, might not be not very exciting to listen to. So yeah, in an ideal world, first 3 to 5 seconds, that's when your hook comes in, and then 30 to 45 seconds is the duration of how long these social media videos should be filmed at.
Yeah, that's such a great call, and I want to apologise to everyone. We did go a bit over 45 for this, and I'm not sure. Dakota, I'm not sure how we started the first few seconds either. I'm sweating now.
I'm sure we'll be fine. We'll be okay.
You're so right, and I think it is interesting, that kind of talk, that discussion around the equipment, microphone, no microphone. It's all about balance, isn't it? Because, there's times where if you've got a tripod and you've got a microphone and you're trying to get everything ready, the moment might be lost. Like, if especially at a live event, like I know a lot of the bits and pieces we capture at Snake or at live events, sometimes if you've got all that equipment and someone's there and then they move and you've already set up sometimes it's good, isn't it, to be nimble and be able to move around
Absolutely.
pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people as well, when there's quite a bit of nervousness around being told, we want you to be in front of the camera for our social media. Can we please speak to you?
Yeah.
And I know for myself, a lot of people kind of freeze and they go, oh, yeah, okay. But it's just that thought or that idea that all you're doing is just having a yarn with someone. And that's what I always say to people when I'm sitting down with them. I preface by saying, forget that the camera's here, forget that the camera is in between us. You're looking at me, I'm looking at you. All we're doing is just having a yarn. That's all. There's no added pressure, no added nervousness to get this right. All you need to remember is that we're just having a yarn about something that you are an expert on. That's something that I want to know more on, and you're just telling me a good story. That's literally it. And then I want to go back to what we spoke about earlier, and it's just, again, talking about just the power of a story. And people get scared around the thought of having a camera in their face, and that's quite confronting for some people, because some people, full stop, they don't enjoy having a camera in their face. But it's one of those things where you are just quite literally having a yarn with someone, and to take away the nervousness, it's just that comfortability around, forget the camera, you're just talking to me and we're just having a yarn, and that's it. So, and you know what? Once you put that pressure off, you find a lot of people relax a bit, and they become a lot more comfortable speaking to you. And it's like organically have a conversation, and that's the best content that we have at Snake as well, is when we just have a bit of a yarn with someone, and it's just, these stories are just amazing that come out of it.
Yeah, too right. And this is on a very similar kind of note to what you've been talking about. I remember I was a massive fan of the Marngrook Footy Show, and I remember watching it like 15, maybe it might have been even 20 years ago, and watched it for many, many years. And something I loved was the humour that they used on the show. Like, it was always lots of gags and taking the mickey out of each other. And since I've been, at Snake, and I've gone and visited some ACOs and met some awesome communities, I've noticed that's quite a common theme, is that amongst Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, it's that sense of humour, taking the mickey. How important do you see that with people's socials and what they put
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. Look, I would like to think that as Aboriginal people, one of our superpowers is our ability to see the humor in nearly anything. You know, having a laugh at nearly anything is just, it's I really believe it's one of our superpowers. If we don't take things too seriously. And again, if we can get that point across in, or I guess that, yeah, that sort of energy across in content, amazing. That's the thing. Everyone on social media, the one thing that you can do to really get that cutting edge is to show someone's personality. And that is like, you can't, there's nothing that compares to that, because like I mentioned before as well, there's so many people on social media that are quite similar to the next, they think they have to be professional and, but sometimes the best thing that you can do is really just show your personality, have a laugh, have a bit of a joke. And again, you'll find that a lot of people will see that authenticity come through, and then they'll connect with that as an audience member. And then they'll, yeah, like, share, comment, and they'll be like, hey, like these mob are kind of cool. Like, this is really good content. So, yeah, really another piece of advice as well is just show your personality. If you can,
Mm.
have a laugh, because people love funny content as well. And really think about ways that you can kind of capitalize on those situations. Again, thinking back to the beginning of our conversation around those mapping at the start of the year, mapping monthly around social media content, really locking in to think, okay, how can we make this our own, with our personality coming through by having a laugh, because it's going to cut us away from the rest of what else might be happening on the day on social media, and make us our own. And a lot of people would really enjoy seeing someone do something different on social media. So again, yeah, I really think that, yeah, social media, having humor on social media is absolutely non-negotiable. It's needed, absolutely. And as Aboriginal people, like, we're funny, so it definitely, yeah, it works.
It does for sure. Dakota, thanks so much for your time on this special episode of Snake Yarns. We are up to the last question, but I'm a bit lost, Dakota, because I've looked at my notes and all it says is Fast Five, which I think is a Vin Diesel movie. So I don't know really what this Fast Five means, but I think what I'm going to do is throw five kind of rapid fire questions your way that people might have about social media. So
Hmm.
are you ready to go? Are
Let's
you up
do
for
it.
it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool, cool, cool. So the first one, which we've touched on, microphone when filming, yes or no?
Now, this is contextual. I would
Oh,
say nay for if you were just beginning. Beginners, nay.
mm,
If you're becoming more comfortable with content creation, definitely a yay. So, yeah, and that's not a very definitive yes or no, but in
no, it was
between.
good.
So, yeah.
On the fence. Well,
Yeah.
very strategic. Always being strategic, Dakota. No, that's very good. Next one, professional camera or phone camera?
Phone camera, definitely phone camera. So again, this idea that you need to have the deadliest equipment out there, the most expensive camera out there, the best
Mm,
lighting going. It's just, it's a total misconception around content creation.
mm.
You can make the best performing piece of content just from your iPhone camera. So yeah,
Great, excellent. Now we've touched on this. Shooting in vertical or shooting in landscape?
you got to be shooting in vertical all the time. You can't be doing the long ways horizontal. It doesn't work
Oh no.
anymore. It's not going to work anymore. Might have back in the day, but yeah, we definitely need to be seeing videos shot vertically.
Wow, that is brutal. There you go. There you have it. So the landscapes are gone, shot to
Yeah.
pieces. This is similar to the microphone question. You probably, people. Well, probably, when you're walking around town, I often see people with little gimbals and tripods and ring lights and all sorts of things going on. What are your thoughts on that? Yes or no to all those kind of add-on bits and pieces?
As you, again, complicated answer, as you become more
Mm,
comfortable with your content creation, it's really helpful to have those little props like a tripod,
mm.
lighting, a ring light, a gimbal, which is just like a stabilizer tripod, for those who don't know. So again, if you're starting out, just need to be have a pretty steady hand. That's my advice. But as time goes on, you become more comfortable. You definitely should have those tools in your social media content creation kit because it's going to help create some really good content.
Yes, and I'm a bit scared to say this, Dakota, but I'll do it. I don't know how this will go, but the CEO of Snake, Catherine Little, is a massive fan of the ring light on the phone camera. So big fan. So yeah, big
Oh
thumbs
my,
up there.
I absolutely love a ring light as well. I was looking for one actually for this podcast episode, but I couldn't find one because it's quite gloomy here in Alice lately. It's pretty cloudy, which is pretty unheard of. But yeah, I love a ring light, but just not today.
Yep, not to be. Yep, and yes, and I think another really good one. Um, Front camera on the phone. What are your thoughts on using the front camera, or should people avoid it if they can get away with it?
So we want to be using the back camera for
Okay.
nearly everything that we capture because the quality is going to be a lot better, and you can actually change the settings if you have an iPhone. I'm a avid iPhone user, so I don't really delve into the Samsung world. So I can't really help anyone who might have a Samsung, but I know for an iPhone you can go in and you can change the camera settings to be shot in 4K, which is really high quality. You can do all these sort of things with the back camera that doesn't translate to the front camera. So I know that it's a lot easier to capture things on a front camera sometimes. And again, if you need to absolutely shoot something on a front camera, like it's not a hard no, you can still use it. But anytime you shoot, you should be shooting on the back camera because the quality is going to be a lot more better.
Wow, that was amazing. You've got through those very easily, Dakota. Our fast five. That's pretty much a wrap. So, thanks so much for your time, Dakota. Really appreciate it. I guess did you have any final thoughts or bits of advice for anyone that's tuning in today to really like help their socials pop in 2026?
So for sure, I think that the one thing that has come out of this yarn, well, that should have come out of this yarn, is that people want to hear stories. People want to hear your yarns. Don't ever think that your yarn doesn't deserve a platform because in most cases, people want to hear what you want to say. There's no such thing as a boring story. And when you want to when you want to talk about, starting from the ground up in the social media space, that's how you're going to start converting people to followers and really wanting to kind of tune in and watch your content is just by sharing your stories. And I'm sounding a bit like a robot, stories, 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 but it really is one of those things that needs to be drilled into people's heads is that idea of, okay, I have a yarn. What can we do to capture this on camera? Um, let's just get the iPhone going. Let's set up a space where we can sit down and forget that the camera's there, but have a yarn while also being filmed, and then let's put it on social media and see how that performs. And the thing is, again, a lot of people are scared of social media because they don't know what to post. But again, it's a lot of trial and error. When I talk about Snake social media platforms, it took us a while and we're still doing it, still kind of figuring out what our audiences want to see because that's I guess the beauty. It could be seen as the beauty of social media is that it's ever changing. We see trends coming in monthly, even weekly. What might have worked last year isn't necessarily going to work this year. So when we talk about making a strategy, this is a bit of a plug for our social media as well, is that we want to be doing things a bit more differently compared to last year. Be a bit more creative. Don't ever be afraid to be more creative when it comes to social media because, again, besides showing your personality and having a laugh, what's going to engage people is how creative a story might be or how creative the editing or something might be on social media, like what makes it different. So, my final advice would be don't be scared, just do it. The more that you put it off, the longer you're going to have to wait. And it's just like ripping the band-aid off. You just need to do it. You just
Mm.
need to figure it out through trial and error. And don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Yeah, and that's awesome, Dakota. And I remember you had a great kind of shout out at the end of the Snake 25 prezzo, and There was a lot of interest. A lot of people were keen to chat. So if anyone's watching this and light bulbs gone off or the creativity sparks are flying, hey, how can they reach out and share any story ideas with Snake?
Yeah, of course. So we are always keen to hear stories coming out of the ACO sector, coming out of our ECEC services. We want to hear them because we love hearing them, and we'd be more than happy to support amplifying, UMOB's story. So whether that's messaging through our social media platforms or just sending us an email at media@snake.org.au. We'd really love to hear if you have a story because, yeah, we'd love to amplify it and really push it out there. So this is a shameless plug. Now, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, please come on over to Snake social media platforms and have a bit of a look to see what we've been up to. Yeah, we love to see Mob engaging with our content, and we'd love to hear your thoughts around some of the content that we do post. So if you're ever on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, be sure to give us a follow. We'd love it.
That is fantastic, and thanks so much, Dakota, for your time today. That was an amazing episode of Snake Yarns. And for anyone just tuning in, if you want to play back and hear any of the great tips and tricks that Dakota's just shared with us, this episode's going to be everywhere, basically. YouTube, Spotify, the Snake website. So do tune in. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll catch you next time on Snake Yarns.